Hey beekeepers, you know, if there's one thing I learned from my mentor in Florida, it was that I hated working bees in the heat. Summertime was not my favorite. And as you can imagine, down there in Florida, it is humid pretty much from January 1st to December 31st. Just kidding. But you know what? I did learn that summer management was a must. And I thought my mentor, Glenn, at the time, that he got into the hives too much sometimes. Like, why couldn't we just leave him alone? And I was mostly just coming from an angle of, I didn't feel like working. It was hot outside. I didn't want to dig into a tall hive like the one over here. And usually the ones in Florida are even taller. There was just so many boxes and so much work. And having a jacket on, and back then I just had a non-ventilated jacket. Didn't even know about the ventilated kinds yet. And so I didn't want to work very much. I just had zero motivation. So I swore whenever I broke off on my own, came here to Georgia, that I would manage less during the summertime. And I'll tell you what, it's kicked me in the butt. If you saw my last video, I'll link it up here. You gotta learn what your bees look like in the summertime. You gotta get in there and manage them because it hasn't been working for me. I will leave my bees alone during our wildflower flow, and that's okay. But then we've got a little 2 to 3 week lull in between flows, and so I'll just leave them alone again instead of really get in there and see how they're doing. So that last video was me going through and showing how to relieve congestion in the brood nest, but also to see what I have. In years past, I've had a lot of issues with my colonies superseding their queen in the summer, and that doesn't always work out. Sometimes the queen never comes back. Maybe a dragonfly swipes her out of the air. Who knows? And then I'll end up checking too late and find out that I've got queenless colonies and no brood to make any more queens from. So today we're going to poke our heads in this one because it's summer. We need to know what the anatomy of a colony looks like in summer, not be so intimidated by how much work this might look like, and not let that get to us and keep us from checking it out because it does seem like a lot of work. So we're going to look at the anatomy of a good colony today, see what they look like in the summer, and know what we can expect. So I'm going to bring you guys along. Stick around. Welcome back, beekeepers, to the Hive Doctor. So it can be a real intimidating thing to try to get into a colony with a lot of boxes. The more bees there are in a box, especially if you're a beginner, you can be a little bit nervous. I'm not nervous about bees anymore. It's more like just a lot of work, especially if these are heavy boxes. And I don't like the thought of rummaging through and harming my queen. But that has it's resulted in having a less involved management style in summertime, and my fall bees have shown me in years past that management style is not working. So it is time for something different. So in between flows, even though that's technically not where we are now, we are at the beginning of our summer flow of sourwood. It's time to bite the bullet and see where my bees are and just face it. Just make it a methodical, take your time kind of thing. All right, so we need to know what we're dealing with. So quilting box off, and from this point I can just assess a box by looking down in. I don't have to even remove frames. So I'm going to bring you guys closer so you can see what I'm talking about. So right here we've recently put this box on top for the flow. There's nothing in this really. We do have drawn comb, one frame that is bare, checkerboarded in, which is great. So there's not hardly any weight to this box. So it's not a big deal. I can set this one to the side here. And now we're down to the second medium. There's a total of 1 deep and 3 mediums. We've already got 1 medium off. We're down to the second one, and I can look through these top bars and see bees between all of them. So our adult density so far is high. I see capped honey. I see open cells. Don't see capped brood yet. But I do a lot of this before I even remove frames. Just a quick glance will tell you a lot before you start busting into things. There's no queen excluder on this, so I've got to be mindful that the queen could be anywhere. Now I will go ahead and remove one frame from this, and that's going to be right in the middle. I'm going to do it carefully. I've only got 9 frames in this box, so they're not tight up against one another. I'm not as worried about rolling the queen in that case. But we're going to pull this middle frame, because if there's brood up here, this is likelier where it's going to be, and I just want to know if there's brood here, if the queen's been up in this box laying. So I'm going to pull this up nice and easy. Give any bees a chance to move out of the way if we've got some weird built-out comb rubbing up against this frame, and we do. And the way you can tell is whenever you open up honey like that. See, I accidentally rolled a bee right here, and that's unfortunate. I should have smoked a little bit more, maybe taken my time a little bit more, even though I thought I did. All right, so this frame is where our queen is, right there on the bottom bar. Not the best frame to pull. So she's in the middle of this frame. This entire area on both sides has been cleared out for her to lay. So far we know that we've got a queen. We don't know that she's laying because I haven't seen eggs. But here's a good thing about this. I can get my frame perch, put it on this other box here, and make sure that my queen stays right here. Now let's go ahead and look at her. Right there you see her tucking her head into a few cells, checking it out, seeing where to lay. Now on the bottom of this we've got a couple of queen cups. They usually keep some of these around as a just in case. I have seen where they've put an egg in this, and then a few days later they'll remove the egg because they decided that they are happy with that queen. Now sometimes if you have a hard time knowing if this is charged, in other words, if there's a larva in it, you can take your hive tool and just peel this back. And in fact, this one does have an egg in it. And this way, they can still repair this if they decide to draw this out. Let's see if we can get a good look at that egg. Right there it is. So let's talk about what this means and what we could possibly do about it. Now, these girls have gone without smoke for a few, so I'm going to smoke them. I want to see what else they're doing in these other boxes. I need to get a feel for what's going on and what space they're utilizing. A lot of times I will find out that they're not even in the deep anymore. They've moved up. Oh, that's heavy. All right, we're down to the bottom medium box. Just enough smoke to let those bees go down, not be all up in my face up here. And now kind of what I'm looking for is not just the anatomy, the structure that the bees have created. I'm also looking for congestion, like the adult density, brood configuration. Do I need to relieve that congestion? Here's a frame that's a lot of empty cells. A lot of empty cells on this side. And so I'm going to say they're not congested. They're not congested brood-wise. I mean, this is right in the middle. But I will show you something that I think answers what's going on in this colony, which supports why it's good to look during the summertime. Right there is a fairly recently chewed out queen cell. So it's chewed out of the side because whatever a queen originally emerged from it, and then the bees are chewing it out on the side because they're getting rid of it. They're slowly chewing it away. So what we potentially have here is that queen we saw is possibly newly mated, and therefore maybe she's not laying yet. She might be a new queen. That would explain why I've got 2 frames so far that have no eggs, but the area for eggs has been cleared out. Let's put this on the frame rest and check another frame here. Now I know what you may be thinking. How can you say she's not laying yet, but you just found an egg in a charged cell? I didn't mean she's not laying. I meant she's not pumping out frames of eggs yet. Clearly she is laying. And I do see some eggs. They're very sporadic in this frame, and they're also on the side of the cell wall. So that tells me that whoever's laying these eggs is not the best. If it's that queen, which surely it is, she's not the greatest quality. Yet more evidence of chewed out cells where queens have recently emerged. There's at least 3 right there. And there's multiple of them, and they're along the bottom bar of the frame, indicating potential swarm activity, that maybe these girls have swarmed. If they did, they certainly left plenty of bees behind. Alright, so far I'm not really liking what I see as far as egg laying pattern. Let's pop this box and see what the bees look like down below as far as the density. See how they're using this deep. Now this is heavy, just like the box I just took off on top of it. And if you guys are ever wondering why I set my boxes like this on end, this is the way we did it in the commercial industry. We had to go from one hive to the next, and by setting them on end, the frames stay upright and they don't fall out of the box. If I set them on their side, that'd be horrible. The reason I don't set most of them flat like this, so I don't squash bees. The reason I did it with this box is because it's mostly empty. The bees aren't working up in here much, and so there wasn't really hardly any bees on the bottom of the box. Plus, I set it on a shim, so there's very minimal contact. All right, so this deep looks good as far as utilization. A lot of times in late summer, I will get down into this and find they're not even using the deep. Here's more evidence of a chewed out cell. Let me show you that closer in case it's something you ever run across and wonder what that is. All right, so this is a cell that was formed on the bottom bar of the box above this one, and they attached it between the 2 frames, the 2 top bars of this box. And so whenever you pry a box up, sometimes you'll bust open a queen cell, and that's what an old one looks like. That's the remnants. So what I do like that I see is that there are bees between all frames of at least 3 of these boxes. What I don't like is the eggs I'm seeing being laid on the side walls of the cells. And I would show you that, but it's real challenging to get that kind of detail with my camera. All right, nice and gentle up. I can feel a little bit of drag. I don't know why, so I've got to be careful. All right, cleared. Now they are utilizing this in that they're putting some open nectar and bee bread. This side is the same. So far, this colony pretty much has no brood, and I suspect it's because they've swarmed. And so it's good that I got in here, because it means now I know the status of this hive. Had I left this alone for the remainder of the flow and then got into it afterwards, I wouldn't understand why they have so little brood. And I'm also seeing some of these cells with a couple of eggs in them, and I know that that's a characteristic of a newly mated queen. She's anxious, and so she's just pumping out eggs. Let's see if we can get a view of that. All right, there we go. Right there in the center, it looks like 2 or 3 eggs that bee's butt is covering up. So the tricky part here is judging whether we have just an anxious queen who has just started, and we will have to hope and trust that she starts centering these eggs, or that she's a queen that's somehow off, and I don't know how or why, and she's going to be hopeless. Like, we want a queen that's laying center of the cell, or at least the bottom of the cell. But so far these eggs, some of them are on the side walls, and that's not a great sign. So what will I do? I think I give this queen about a week to continue doing what she's doing, and then it's enough time to give her time to lay a good, full, solid frame of brood, so that I can come back and check the quality of that, the eggs, their positioning, even the younger larvae, to see if in fact they are raising the next generation of brood. Right now we've got a brood break in this, which is good for us as far as varroa and as far as brood nest congestion. So right now there's no congestion in this colony because there's no brood, but we also have a questionable queen. So it's time to back out of this. We've got a little bit of good news, a little bit of concerning news, but we know it's something that we now need to keep an eye on by giving them a certain amount of time to hopefully fix the situation. If I come back and find that the quality of brood has not improved, then I will need to locate that queen, put her out of her misery, out of my misery, and give them a fresh frame of brood for one of my good colonies for them to raise again. They definitely have the population and the resources to do it, especially during a flow like this. This frame was right up against the one with the queen, so I'm just checking to see if the queen has crawled over to this frame. I don't see her, so we're gonna go back with this frame. I'm gonna check for the queen. And you see that honey that I squished when I was pulling this frame out? All these bees are cleaning it up. And that's where the queen is too. She wants in on some of that. Now I hear the buzz in this box when they're indicating to me that they don't detect the presence of their queen. Okay. Now again, I want to make sure I locate my queen before I just put her back in this box. Sometimes it takes a few minutes. Sometimes when the bees clump up, you can just put your finger on them and they'll move out of the way so you can see under them. Nope, not there. All right, they're clumped up on this side. Let's see if she's under that dog pile. Some of the bees fell down in, she could be those. All right, I'm having a hard time actually seeing if the queen's in there. And I don't want to put this frame down if she's on it and possibly roll her. So I'm just gonna give a nice shake. If she was one of those, great, now she's in that box. Do a quick check, she's not on this frame, not on this side. And keep from rubbing these frames together again, I'm gonna push this one just a little out of the way. And I'm gonna do one more measure of, just in case the queen is between these two frames, I'm gonna smoke a little bit so that she'll run down just like the rest of the bees are doing. And then we'll put this back. Frame rest. Next box. Check underneath, make sure there aren't a bunch of bees hanging. Nope, no one hanging on there. All right, so we pretty much assessed everything as we went through it. That's what the anatomy of this summer colony looks like. So it's potentially what any colony could look like when these circumstances are occurring. Now, remember that egg we saw in the queen cup? Maybe they'll keep that, they'll rebuild that cell that I squashed out of the way a little bit with my hive tool. They'll form that back and maybe they'll keep that egg and raise a new queen because maybe they know this queen isn't any good. So when I come back in about a week, it'll be good to not only look for signs that the queen in here right now has improved her egg laying, or that they've decided to draw out actual queen cell and raise another queen on their own, because they know better than I do if this queen's got a problem with her or not. And so that is the anatomy of this particular summer colony. Thank you guys for joining me today. I'll see you guys in the next video. The doctor out.